Hey, thanks for joining us. I'm Jason, and this is Pastor Dave, and I got questions, and he's got answers. So, in our faith, we're relying on, we're focusing on, we're staying focused on Jesus. But there is somebody that's against us. There is something that's trying to kill us and bring us down, and it's Satan. It's the devil, and that name gets thrown around kind of loosely anymore either. It just kind of gets thrown out there. And I guess my question is who is Satan and where did he come from?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's some scriptures that are believed to be tied with the idea of where Satan might have originated. The first insert I find in Isaiah chapter 14, where he describes how are you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? And so then Lucifer kind of ties the idea, and there's several commentaries and people that believe that this is referring to Satan. And I don't tend to have any problems with this being a definition of some of the origin of Satan. You have weakened the nations, and you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, and I will also sit on the mount of the congregation on the farthest side of the north. I will ascend above the heavens of the clouds, and I'll be like the Most High. You can see the arrogance, and that's really the beginning of Satan. We find in the book of Ezekiel, if I could get over there fast enough, in chapter 28, he describes for us some of the beginning responsibilities that I believe Satan had also that he's referred to here as, if I can find it, where he talks about, you are the anointed cherub who covers, I will establish you. In verse 14 of chapter 28 of Ezekiel, you were on the holy mountain of God. So he, in the beginning, was in the presence of God, and we learned that he was also a cherub, which is one of those four angels that flies around the presence of God that we find in various places in the scriptures, Isaiah chapter 6 and Revelation chapter 4, a cherubim. He was one of those. So he was as close to God as any created being could possibly be. He was one of those. And he was on the holy mountain of God. And we learned from Isaiah 14 why he fell away from that, because of his arrogance and pride. He wanted to become like God. That wasn't good enough. He wanted to become like God, and so he fell. And he says that he walked back and forth in the midst of the fiery stones, and you were perfect, talking about Satan. He was perfect, and you were perfect in your ways from the day you were created, till iniquity was found in you. And that's what the iniquity was sin. So where did Satan start? He was a created being. And in the beginning, God created, knowing that this would take place, but it gave man this option later on, this choice that whether you want to follow God or not. But his fall came because of his desire and lust for power, and he fell to that. And so you can almost identify those who are following after Satan by this characteristic of pride and arrogance and lack of humility. This idea of following after God is really becoming less that. You're becoming more like God. You're becoming more humble before the things of God and more loving and less about the world, about you, but now it's about you're serving the Lord. And so these interesting things that took place, and though we don't understand it in its entirety by any means, but it's an interesting thing. It's like God created man to make a choice. And it's really not a choice if you don't have something to choose. And so God allowed this rebellion to take place. And we find out in the book of Revelation chapter 13, he drew a third of the stars of heaven, the angels of heaven, with him. So a third of the heavenly host followed Satan, and the others stayed in the presence of God. And so we find in this dividing up of Satan and his rebellion, we find now two kingdoms, and the kingdom of death and darkness, the kingdom of light and life. And those who choose to come into the kingdom of light and life leave this kingdom that we're born in death and darkness, that's under the rule of Satan. And so, yeah, it's interesting that God would allow this, but it's to give man a choice, so that man could actually say, I want to follow the Lord. It's so much a choice that he says that when one person chooses to follow after God, rather than following after the enemy, the Satan, and his rebellion and the pride and arrogance, if someone chooses to follow God, the angels of heaven, the remaining angels, they go into a jig. They begin to dance. It becomes party time. And over one soul that chooses to come into the kingdom, and that's what Jesus refers to, or the picture. This is an interesting thing, because it becomes really the whole picture of the struggle that we live in the midst of. And so there is a real enemy, and his name is Satan, and he fell because of his pride and arrogance. And there really is a kingdom of light and life, and he's wooing the world to make a choice. And when you choose Christ, it's that you're choosing to come out of this world, when the God that's ran by the God of this world, Satan.
So there is a God and there is a devil, and God gave us a choice. Choose wisely. Thanks for joining us.